When you hear the phrase climate change, what feelings come up? There's a lot of feelings that can come up. I asked 5 college students about the issue. Here's what they felt.
Thoughts and feelings that pop up when I hear climate change?
It's a good question. Frustration.
It's a little bit of hopelessness, and it's kind of sad and scary.
Scared. I'm afraid.
When I'm seeing like transportation, I think transportation is a big one. Yeah, it's physical and
It's scary as fuck.
Climate change, I think, like frustration of big companies not wanting to like make a change and putting all the pressure into like the consumer.
I think about the irreversible damage we've done to the earth already, and like the damage that is done like every single day. I also think about how big companies and people try to blame it on the individual.
Even though every student we interviewed had feelings about climate change, almost none of them said that the public was on their side, that the greater United States did not feel the urgency as they did. You may feel the same way.
I know a lot of people don't believe in climate change, which is a weird thing.
No, people like to think weird things, conspiracy theories, and why not think that climate change isn't real?
Yeah.
like skeptics and conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of people are like, oh, it's fake.
The climate problem is very real and has very real repercussions coming if major changes aren't made.
Because I recognize that there's so many big things going on in the world. I recognize the hurricanes and the floods. But then I think about local farmers, and I think about fishermen, and I think about people who are unhoused. Exacerbates the challenges that any of those humans face.
But most people are wrong about how other people feel about the issue and how much progress has actually been made. So why do we feel so isolated in this problem? And have we made any progress? If you feel anything like they do, you are not alone. In the survey, 60% of youth and young adults said they were very or extremely worried about climate change, and more than 45% said that their feelings about climate change negatively affected their daily life and functioning. Yet what is interesting is that most people assume far less of the population feels the same way. Now ask yourself, what percentage of US adults do you think support climate policy?
Probably maybe 40%, because people sometimes say oh, I don't believe in climate change, or maybe just don't think about climate change at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's either a little bit over 50% or lower. Part of me feels like it's lower than...
I would guess 50.
There are a lot of people that either don't believe in it or don't care. So there's I don't know, I could throw out a number 66, but that's probably way too high. Maybe 34 or something percent of people care. I don't know. Nothing over 75%. I hate to say it, but this is America.
About 80% of Americans underestimate the support for climate action at about 37 to 43%. In reality, that number is 66 to 80%.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so there's a bigger amount, there's more reasonable Republicans than I thought.
That's nice. That's nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Align with any particular political party. I try not to. I used to think that very few people felt the same things as I did or felt the same way as I did. I'm finding now that that's not true at all. Especially because I grew up in a super conservative religious community, so I was oh my God, everyone hates the planet, we're trying to kill everything. It's really not true. I know for a fact, more than 3/4 of the United States understands that climate change is happening.
So even though the public has a strong majority on climate policies, why does it seem like the US isn't doing anything? Well, it turns out they are. Here's a chart showing climate funding from past presidencies. Now look at Joe Biden's presidency, the Inflation Reduction Act, which put more money into the climate problem than any other bill combined. Worldwide, before the Paris Agreements in 2014, the world was on track for 4 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. As the New York Times puts it, an outcome widely seen as catastrophic. But thanks to policies like the Inflation Reduction Act, humanity started to bend the curve, leaving us to around 3 degrees Celsius. A better result, but still devastating. If countries keep their promises from the Paris Agreement, we may be looking at just 2 degrees Celsius. Still, scientists say that 1.5 is where we need to be. In less than a decade, we have made a third or even half the progress on climate change. We often see the next storm or wildfire on the news, but this should be a reminder that behind every news story is some person just like you trying to make a difference, that is scared and wants to share it. So what do we do when we experience painful climate emotions? What does the science say? The first strategy studies recommend you do is this: to talk about your climate feelings to someone else. We like to think that if we just ignore or resist our emotions and pretend they're not there, they will just go away. But what happens is the thoughts and feelings just get louder. Some psychologists use an analogy of ignoring the crying baby inside of you, and instead of holding it and giving it attention, you just try and shut it in a closet. The hard reality is that there is nothing wrong with you for feeling anxious, angry, or depressed about how out of control the world is.
I don't know. I'm glad because I feel a little bit. I lean towards the hopeless side of things. I'm like, damn, nobody cares about this. Like, it's gonna be like 40% of people support the policies or something. That was like my first reaction to it. But that's positive.
But also, I mean, the positive side is that people care and people want to change.
Every time I think about the ocean too hard, just like tons and tons and tons and tons of oil and plastic. Like, in order for this system of innovation to run, we have to kill the earth. Like, we have to strip the earth of its natural materials to make our stupid man-made materials. And it's a really bad transaction.
So I think I've also found a lot of like community lately, which is really interesting to say because it's like, I mean, I guess it's kind of not though, because we find community in our struggles. That's like one of the main reasons that we exist together is so that we can like change things together, overcome things together. So frustration, but also community.
Okay, you've gotten to the end of the video. While I did do a lot of research for this project, I want to make it very clear that I am not a psychologist or of any mastery of study. Any emotions you're having are valid, and they're not fun, but they're valid.